I don't forget and I get in trouble. You didn't have to do it right now, but okay. So I'm not the only one that's forgetful. But y'all wouldn't have given me that much grace and let me walk out there and put it on and come back. Y'all would have stared at me like I had two heads or something. Well, we're still in the series of separation. And we've been talking about how this all falls in line with us as Christian people and as disciples. What takes place in our life and what's demanded of us when it comes to separation. What does God require that we separate from? We talked a little bit about that last week, and this week we're gonna continue to walk through this. And if you got your Bibles, let's go to Genesis chapter 12, and I'm gonna start at verse 4. And I've got some notes. I just don't know how this is gonna land. I've got some sideways stuff, so I'm going to try to keep up the best I can. But Genesis chapter 12, beginning at verse 4. So Abram departed. Last week we talked about how God came to Abram and told him to leave his country, leave his family, and go to a land that he would show him. So now we're catching up now where Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions and that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go out to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were then in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountains east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. So Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south, still in Canaan. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there. For the famine was severe in the land. And it came to pass when he was close to entering Egypt, he said to his wife Sarah, his wife Sarah, indeed I know that you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Men, we ought to take note of that. I mean, this woman is up in age, and her husband still looked at her and said, you're a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore it will happen when the Egyptians see you that she must have been really rocking. Therefore it will happen when the Egyptians see you that they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say you're my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, that I may live because of you. I'll stop there. You know, there are times during our journey with Christ that we may experience famines. Have you ever experienced a famine in your journey? I mean, after you become a Christian, and boy, how life was so blissful, and God used to turn the pages of his Bible for you. Y'all remember those days? And you would just give it a thumb or a finger, and there it was. It was the verse of the week. It was the word of the hour, and everything was just joyful and blissful, and everything just seemed to fall in place time after time, and you didn't have to even put any type of energy behind it, and blessings would fall at your feet. Man, if only it could stay like that, right? But I think so many times we have this tendency to believe that when God gives us a promise that we think that everything will just fall right in line and it will happen without any effort. We don't have to do anything but just sit in the moment. And then one thing leads to another, and here comes the enemy, seeking whom he may devour. And that little seed of promise that God dropped in you at Bethel has now sprouted and wilted at the first sunlight. It took one thing to come into your life, and now all of a sudden, well, this must not have been God. You ever been there? You thought, man, you could have sworn that it was God that told you. And now you go, well, maybe. And some of us will go home and start looking, going, did I tell Sister who and who in the church that God told me? Did I? Have you ever had to relive those words? You've looked at somebody before in your past, and you've said, well, this is what God has told me. And you begin living that thing out, and now adversity hits, and all of your friends and your foes, they're looking and peering through the fence like we did down in Tennessee, right, Maggie Valley. We had to look over the fence. It was just too much money to get in, man, and just a few tents, and we said, nah, it ain't worth it. So we went and ate. But all your friends and your foes are surrounding you, and they're looking at this thing. And you said that God has spoken. God has told you. God has set this up. This is God. And now you're facing something. And not just your foes, but your friends. A lot of the times, your close family come a-running. Well, I thought you told me God said. And now you begin to get pushed back on your heels. You begin to wonder and scratch your head. Did I really hear God, or was it my emotions? I got caught up in the moment, so I said I do. Now we have to make it work. All right, I'm coming in your living room. I'm going to sit down with you. We do so many things out of emotion. And then we find out that, might have stepped too soon, might have done too much, might have said too much. And here I am. Now I'm in the middle of it. See, most people, 99% of the people, will say, yeah, I'm out. I quit. There's something better. There's something that means more. Well, I thought you was doing that one. Wasn't you doing that one thing? Yeah, I just kind of, I'll let that go. Because that's the easy way out. Because now those people remember when they just went, yeah, I kind of just let that, They remember when they said it. It'll be better. It'll get better. I just want you to understand that the people that you look at and you go, well, I thought God said, might be the same people that look back at you and say, I thought God said. When you give up. When you just decide that, yeah, It's not working out. See, that's called famine. It's called famine in the land. I get it. Y'all sit down. But it's called famine in the land. Well, Dennis, bless the Lord, oh my soul. But that's called famine. See, when things aren't working out your way and they're not benefiting you, and you're not getting any type of sustenance from your circumstance at the moment, it's called famine. So what do we do with our lives in most cases? We revert back to what we know and what we can control. Watch Abram. Abram had been given a promise from God. You got to remember, man, this didn't happen. What Abram done by leaving Canaan and going to Egypt because of a famine, he did not do because the promise hadn't been spoken. The promise had already been spoken. The covenant had already been made. He had already set up an altar. He had already worshiped God. Y'all, come on, think about it. When God gives you a promise and you know it's God giving you the promise, the first thing you do is throw up holy hands, and you're so grateful for God that He spoke into your life and that He said that He was going to do something. And you automatically you're all in. You pushed all your chips to the center of the table because God said, and then there's a famine. Boy, shouldn't have made that bet. Probably shouldn't have pushed them chips. I'm letting you know, man, Abram's the father of our faith. So if this can happen with him, rest assured it can happen with you. God can come and put a promise into your life, and you can go, thank you, Jesus. You even go to church on Sunday. You even go to church on Sunday because God spoke a word into your life. But come Wednesday, we had some turbulence Monday and Tuesday. I can't sit and talk about it. This is how we react as humans. Now listen, I'm not giving you a reasonable excuse. You cannot, once you say, I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord, you're no longer just human. You tell me, well, I'm just human, I might pull my belt off. You're not just human. See, you're to live by the Spirit. Walk by the Spirit, not by the flesh. Whatever you do of the flesh, you're going to eat. Whatever you do of the Spirit, you're going to eat. That's the RDN version. Right? But Abram is sitting here, man, and I can just imagine at 75 years old. Come on, it's hard to move me at 55. Can you imagine him walking into your life? You're settled in life at the age of 75 years old and telling you, pack up and move out. Now, at 75, we going to say I didn't have my hearing aid on. Batteries were dead. But can you imagine? But that promise was that word that was spoken at that point was so strong that it caused him to leave. He was willing to walk away from family and country at the age of 75. We ain't going to do it. Well, I got to say, we ain't going to do it at 30-something. We ain't even 30-something. We ain't even going to do it at 30-something. Y'all go pull out Google. You want to know the weather up there? Because you got to take clothes, right? Whatever. But he turned from the land that was promised him after the promise. After him saying, thank you, Jesus, I'm in. And because he experienced a famine, he left and went to Egypt. Egypt is it symbolizes bondage. It symbolizes world. What I'm trying to get you to understand this morning is you've got to be separated from the world. See, we can't always revert back to the world because we feel that we have control. See, just because famine is introduced into our life doesn't mean God is not in it. Now, there's times the enemy will come running in, trying to destroy your seed because he knows the quickest and the best way to kill your promise is in seed form. If he can uproot it while it's still seed, his job's easier. When your seed begins to take root and grow into that big oak tree, you don't get rid of that tree that easy. You can go up there and cut this limb and cut that limb, and that thing's still growing and still throwing leaves around your yard. Boy, I want to just go out there and just box some ears on some oak trees. And we've cut limbs off. I think it produced more leaves. I'm mad. So Abram turns away from where he was planted. Y'all need to listen to this. Don't you turn from where you're planted because you're experiencing a famine. God may be using that famine that you're experiencing where you're at, where you were planted, to grow you. Do you know that plants, when you put them in the ground, you don't just plant them and walk away. You got to do some stuff to them. You're tilling up ground around them. You're drowning them with water. Can you imagine what that poor seed's going through? Having to struggle in darkness, dry times, having to fight its way out. Well, first it had to die. Y'all don't. You willing? See, we want the promise of God, but we ain't willing to die to self. We won't put ourself away so that fruit can come. Yes. And that seed had to die, fighting, finally sprouting, finally breaking through ground. Now boy, this is just like Christian people. We wait to see the sprout before we start doing anything, because before the sprout, we don't even think anything's happening. That's called immature Christianity. Because when God speaks, God does. He said, have I not spoken it? Will I not perform it? So when he speaks, rest assured, it's happening. Whether you can see it or not, at that moment, it's happening. Amen. Mature Christianity is praising it when you can't see. But we got to wait until we see the sprout. God, if this is the woman, then let her come in and make me some fried chicken. And that woman, I don't know if you've ever made me a piece of fried chicken. Yeah, that is true. I remember that. Oh, man, it was black as your boots. And still bleeding. I said, yeah, we ain't going to go that route no more. Let's just go to KFC or something. So that's how we eat chicken at my house. It ain't never cooked in a pan. Not at my house. I can't tell you the last time I had a piece of fried chicken out of a pan. Lisa. But I'm okay with it. I'm still married. But see, we've got to see everything come to fruition before we believe. That's not faith. The Bible says there's no sense to even have hope once you see it. Hope's not needed because it's already there. And that's just like us. See, we want to throw sidearms to Abram because he done what he did. But we do it too, even now. And we've got everything written there and tells us how basically every scenario will happen. And we still run into Egypt because God didn't give us what we wanted. So we thought. See, God can't unveil his promise to you all at one time. Number one, you can't handle it. And number two, you're going to mess it up in the process. Because you're going to go right back and revert to, nah, if God promised it, so I can't, no, I got to do it this way. It's got to happen like this. And God's going, what? Since when do I have to go through this, and this to give you that? God can bypass all laws of nature. Poor Abram, he says, I'm done. I'm going. And he takes off to Egypt, thinking it's going to be better because the appearance of what the world offered looked better than what God promised. I wonder how many of us have aborted the promise because of the appearance. Come on. Let's have Sunday school. How many of you have walked away? I have. I've walked myself right on outside of a promise because the appearance of something else. Y'all not perfect. Go like this and just take off your holy garb and put it under the seat. You ain't that good yet. None of you had to duck to keep your halos from hitting the doorway when you come in. Right? Nobody had to fold your wings so you can get through the doors. But this is what we do. We lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. I told y'all, man, if we could just defeat those three, life is good. Because everything's going to get tied to those three. Look at everything that you've ever done and go back to one of those three. That's all they were tempted with in the garden. That's all Jesus was tempted with in the desert. And that's all you're tempted with. And we fail miserably. Because of the appearance. He goes to Egypt. Watch what happens when we revert, when we take our place from the promise and we revert to the world. And when I say revert to the world, I'm not talking, y'all fill in the blank. I'm just saying, what I'm talking about when I say reverting back to the world, things that you think you have control over. Things that you can put, because you don't have control of the spiritual things. That's why it's so hard for you to serve God. Because you want to be in control. You can't be in control and serve God. That's why we revert back to the worldly way. Because now I can manipulate some things. Come on. I begin to compromise. I compromise the promise for a fleshly fulfillment. Look what the first thing he done was compromise. The very first thing he did was compromise. He says, now tell them you're my sister. The first thing's out of his mouth. But you're better than him, right? you ain't going to compromise. I'm just going to go down here and eat and just make sure that my family is taken care. No, you're not. You're going to go and you're going to compromise. See, character. Character is more important than the provision. We can all gain anything in this world. I know, you need the scripture. God said He's given us everything that we need to gain prosperity. You can have anything in this world that you want to have. You're just going to have to work for it. You're going to have to apply yourself to it. It's just like playing the piano. Anybody here play a piano? Well, everybody keeps their hands down. Anytime I ask somebody about playing some instruments, they... So they can play a piano. Why? Because they have become a student of it. They've applied themselves to it. I've never applied myself to it. You don't want me playing the piano. Shoot, you don't even want me singing, do you? I have to be in the anointing. Can't even be under it. You got to be in it. So when we go and we apply ourselves in the world, listen, it's everywhere. I can sustain my family through worldly provisions. Yeah. I do not need to serve God in order to eat. Right. Come in the house. Look, there's people all over the place that don't even believe in God, and they live in a life better than you are. And you're going, see what I'm saying? Now you're listening. So we don't have to serve God to be blessed. He actually says, I'll bless who I want. And you can't do nothing about it. Boy, that's just wrong in every aspect. That's just wrong. I'm going to rain on the just and the unjust. And there's nothing you and I can do about it. But there's going to come a time when all things come to an end. And when all these things in this world come to an end, where will you stand? Because the provision, my friend, will be done and over. Then what? What do you do when there is no more wife? What do you do when there is no more husband? What do you do when there is no more child? What do you do then? You know, you have gone to Egypt, because I tried the Jesus thing and it didn't work for me. No, you didn't work for it. It worked for you. You decided to back out of some things. You decided to walk out of Canaan and go to Egypt. We want everything hand-given. That's what we want. The Bible says the man won't work, the man ain't going to eat. Now, that's already in translation too, but it's in there. Man, we take everything for granted. Do you really think that God, well, actually, God doesn't. He won't. He takes us from faith to faith, strength to strength, faith to faith, and glory to glory. So if He's going to take us from faith to faith, what has to happen? You have to be tested. You have to be tried. You're going from this faith, because everyone is given a measure of faith. And you're to build upon that faith. In order to build upon that faith, you're going to be put through some times. There's going to be some times it's going to be completely out of your control. Will you trust Him, or will you revert to Egypt? He can't give you a promise and let you sit in it and everything good. You become complacent. And I'm going to promise you, there's no doubt in my mind, when you're not facing problems in your life, when you're not facing some type of adversity, you will become complacent to the point that you feel as though you do not need God any longer. That's why he says it's easier for the camel to fit through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter into heaven. Y'all hating me this morning. Abram's fighting all of this. And I would fight it. Look, I'm sitting, man, my family, the whole country's starving. Man, it's easy to sit back here and go, man, you should have stayed, Abram. Unless you were there. Unless you were faced, if that was my child, I wouldn't. I like your wives' clubs that y'all have. Oh, let me get in your kitchen. I like your little wives' clubs that you have. You know, the ones that have all the wisdom in it. The ones that have lived in a rocky marriage from the whole time, from beginning up to now. They've been married for at least 3 whole years. And they telling you, if that was my husband, if I wouldn't tolerate that if my husband done that. I'd tell my husband where he could, and there you go, off and running, man, like somebody lifted the gates at a horse race, and you're out and gone. You went straight to the house, and you told him to pack his bags, and now, guess what? You left while your other friends in the club, they still going home to their husband. The one that said, if my husband, and you know good and well, he done the same thing that he done. Or worse. Come on, women. Y'all thought I was just going to beat the men? I'm trying to grow you. You better be careful in the wisdom that you glean from. One of the biggest things that you always need to look at is a track record. Man, listen, she and I, we done been there. I mean, going through 12 years of hell in the first 12 years of our marriage. I mean, every living day was hatred and division. And I prayed then. Y'all want to know the prayer I prayed? Let me tell you how stupid we get when we get outside of God and we revert to Egypt. I was praying that they would get in a car accident and that she would die and my kids would stay alive. Oh my God, you're a pastor. Yes, I am, and God's grace is abundant. And I'm grateful for that. That prayer, man, I look at me, how stupid could you have been, Rocky? Pretty stupid. Pretty stupid. But we hated each other. But we going through that stuff, and we decide, no, she decided, I didn't decide, I wasn't going to no marriage counseling because I ain't need it. I went to some of the boys' humidors right there. Some of you men, y'all got your little humidors out there. That's where I just went into. It's kind of a little private. Y'all know what a humidor is. I went into some of your little intimate places right there because we got it all together. I ain't need no marriage counseling. Can't nobody tell me how to do it. She just need to do it the way I tell her to do it. And if she didn't do it, so she decides, man, we're so weak. She decides that we go to marriage counseling, and I go. I mean, I don't understand that. I wasn't going. But she decided I was, and I did. I'm scratching my head the whole way. What am I even doing? We get there, this dude done been divorced 3 times and going to try to tell me how to keep. No, he told us that our marriage wasn't no hope. That's what he told me. I look at the wall. I'm seeing all these sheepskin lined on the wall. Man, this guy's got an education. And come to find out, he'd have been married and divorced 3 times. And I went, I ain't going back there, fool. How am I going to somebody that can't even keep their stuff together? And you're going to tell me, so here's my advice to you ladies that want to seek all your wisdom in women outside of godly wisdom that tell you, well, if it was, you better check their track record. You better find out if their husbands worship the ground that they walk on or if he's always hanging out with the boys. Because if he's always hanging out with the boys, you better keep your lips sealed. And there's nothing worse in marriage than to be in marriage and be lonely. But you want to take everybody else's advice. You get mad at a pastor you won't go talk to track records. And I done went left, didn't I? We're talking about Abram. I'm coming back. We're just ministering right now. But you better check somebody's track record. Don't come and say, hey, how did you do that? And then she says, well, first of all, get your relationship right with God. You fall in love with him again, and everything else will work itself out. And the first thing you want to do is go home and fight him because he ain't loving you. Why are you going to ask? That's like being hungry. Hey, can I get a burger? Yeah, and then not eat it. Duh. But you're wanting something out of it. I'm going. Unbelievable. All right, well, we talked about it coming after the promise, so I ain't got but doesn't it make perfect sense? Doesn't it make perfect sense to go and revert back to what you can control when there's a famine? I mean, it made sense to me at first. Because see, I'm not the type, I don't like sitting and sulking in my issue. It drives me crazy, and I catch myself there, and I have a hard time with that. I don't like being there. And the enemy will drive you and drive you and drive you and drive you to stay just so he can cause you to lose your ever-loving mind. And that's all that's going to happen. Our faith is grown through adversities. Now I'm catching back up. Watch, he finds himself. Let me go. I'm gonna take you back a few verses where he went to the terebinth tree. This tree represents a place of peace. It represents a place of revelation. A place of rest. See, if you know anything about the terebinth trees, these are the trees that Elijah found, that one lone, and falls up under it, and shade trees and stuff like that. That's what these are. And here is Abram. See, we can look back on it now and we can learn from this. God put him in this place, the promise. He comes to this tree, a place of rest. If we can learn to rest in the promise, it's easier said than done, ain't it? Man, it's like me with my wife. She says, I'll bring something home to eat. I'm hungry at that point, right? I'm hungry right then. She says, I'll bring you something home to eat. Okay, baby. Man, my stomach is eating my backbone by the time that woman gets home because she had to make like 45 stops. She left all of that out. You could have just said, Chick-fil-A's around the corner, go get it. And I'd have went. But now I'm going to bring you something. She gets home, it's cold. You still brought it. See how they tag team? See how men, be careful. Be careful. But if I would have just learned to rest, knowing it's coming, and not worry about it. But dude, I'm hungry. I need it now. You need peace in your home now. You need joy in your home now. You need love in your home now. And God's going, if you'll just hang on a minute. Told you I was coming. Told you I was fixing. Told you I was going to make. Listen, our marriage didn't radically turn around in 12 years. We just made a decision to turn it at the 12-year mark. There was different things then. We learned to love differently. We learned to listen differently. We learned to give differently. But we placed in practice what we learned. As long as this earth shall endure, there is seed, time, and harvest. One man plants, another man waters, and God brings the increase. You better listen. We all want the supernatural growth. And listen to me, I'm not telling you that it won't happen overnight one time for some of you. Some of you might be in a situation right now, and man, you walk out of here today and you get this miraculous phone call from somebody you wasn't even expecting. Anybody ever got something from somebody they wasn't expecting to get from? And then bang. It can happen. I'm not going to say it won't happen. I'm just telling you, if you're waiting on that to happen on every single one of them, you're going to flee to Egypt. You're going to experience a famine. Sometime in your life, you're going to experience a famine. Just keep living. And we're doing all this stuff for temporal satisfaction. Nothing's forever, man. God's love, God's grace, His word, everything else is going to go away. See, you're all tied up and excited about going to heaven when you die. Can I tell you something? You're not going to be the only one going to heaven. Sinners are going to go to heaven. Watch this. Back some people up right there. Religious spirit said, what? Where's the throne of God? Where's the great white throne judgment? You're just going to experience it differently. Now the question is, it ain't that if you're going to go to heaven, it's how long can you stay? Because everybody, listen, it's written, there's going to be a judgment. And it's going to be at the great white throne judgment. And that throne is God's throne. That's His seat. So we're all going to go. Here's the other sad part about it. I'm going to go ahead and just deflate your balloon all the way now that you know even sinners are going to go to heaven. I've explained it like this before, though. You can go to court as a defendant, or you can go to court as the accuser, right? Well, the accuser can walk in, and the accuser's looking, and man, walnut, and just beautiful floors and benches, and they notice the gavel. I mean, they see all of it. Well, the defendant ain't interested in none of that. He don't get to experience the courtroom that way. He's got too many other things going on. It's the same thing with sinners and saints. Man, we're going to be going, whoa. And they're going to be going, whoa. But there comes a time when there's going to become a new heaven and a new earth. So even the heaven that you and I are hoping we can at least make it to, it's going to go away. And that's what you're excited about in your Christianity, is getting to heaven? Shouldn't our excitement be to exemplify the glory of God while we're here on earth? Shouldn't we become the ambassadors that we were called to be while we are here? We talked about character being greater than the provisions. Reverting back to worldly ways. We pick up the perfecting of the promise in our own hands. It falls in line with some men trust in chariots, some men trust in horses. As far as for me, trust in the Lord. Can you trust in Him in the time of famine? When things aren't going well at the homestead, can you trust in Him? When life's not all peaches and cream, Lenore, can you trust Him? I'm not saying you probably won't waver. I'm not saying that the storm won't be a little unsettling. I'm saying, will you trust in Him? Will you keep your eyes on Him? I'm sure Peter didn't walk just like this on the water. I'm sure there was a little bit of this on the way. Right? Little storm. But then he started focusing on everything around him. And he went, wait a minute. I can't do this. Whoop. You're right. You can't. Do you have it in you to rest in a promise? Do you? If He promises it, can you sit there and rest and trust Him? Even when things went south in the home, can you? See, we say we can, man, until we can't. You just need to understand you've got to be separate from this world. You can't look at things with the eyes of carnality. We can't say that, well, if I leave here, it's greener over there. How many of you found that the green grass on the other side had manure under it? Girl, preach that with you. See, the rest of y'all lied up in church. She said, "A to the men." It's what happens. But man, if we could you imagine what kind of man you could have been married to? Just some one riding a bicycle when he's 45, going clinky clink, clinky clink with the bell. Now I'm talking about that could have been what you married if you'd have divorced me and went somewhere else. But did you? Diamond in the rough, baby. It was a diamond in the rough. Really, that's the other way. But being able just to rest in the promise. Because honestly, it's still work to some degree, but it's not like the work that some go. Because they're still trying to get, watch this, they're still trying to get their fruit to fruition. So you're out in the garden when it's hot. We're on the front porch. Because now that tree that's been planted is self-sustaining. It's been producing fruit every year. We just go out once, twice a year and clip, and leave it alone. And we just move right on through marriage. See, the clip is because she leaves stuff laying around. You still have to work on that kind of stuff. Doesn't cook dinner or doesn't fry any chicken. You clip that in January, just get it done and over with so you can live the rest of the year. You don't even have to worry about it. But see, so many people will look, and I'm using this as an example. I'm not glorifying in us. I'm glorifying in God. Because if you don't know where God took us from in our marriage, you don't understand. Now we're at, I was trying to keep it at 31. 31 was just so nice. Now we're 32. I got to go through another year. If we'd have just stayed in 31, but I glory in him because of what he done. And so many will look from the outside in and go, I wish. Be careful. Because what we had to till through, hoe through, water through, fertilize through, weed through, might break you. Just like what you've gone through might break me. I had to tell my best friend one day, thank you for going through what you went through. Because if it would have been me, it would have killed me. And after about an hour and a half conversation, we both understood. God has structured you and built you for your stuff, not for mine. Why do you think David went out and said, I can't fight in this armor. It don't fit me. Goliath would have squashed him like a bug while he was out there in his armor trying to. Can you imagine a boy in a man's armor? Can you imagine the immature in the mature? See, there are some things, man. We all have our levels. We all fight our levels. Don't ever wish to be like something else. Because, I mean, it can cripple you. I don't want none of y'all's marriages. I don't care how pretty it looks like on the outside. I don't want it. I already know she tells you what to do. I don't want it. Got one of my own. Right? God promises. We go. We're there. Right? God promises. We face adversity. We revert. We compromise. Thanks be to God, he keeps us. Because he kept him. Even in the deceit, he kept him. Because he made a promise. This does not give you. Don't you go. Well, Pastor said he go keep me anyway. Don't you dare. Just because God does not discipline you does not mean that he condones your action. At that moment, you ought to be thanking him for his toleration and his mercy on your life. Because truth be known, we all need a spanking every day. 4, 5, 6 times of us. Sometimes for me, not for you. Don't revert back to worldly things. Be separate from the world. Trust in God. Rest in his promises. He'll keep you. He'll sustain you. See, sustaining literally means, like sustainability, literally means like from generation to generation. So not only is he going to keep us, he going to keep my kids. And he going to keep my grandbabies. even because my kids can't raise my grandbabies right now the way they should, even because they deprive them of chocolate and everything else.
I know, how dare they?
All they got to do is turn their head. Just turn your head just for a minute. I'll give them a cupcake about that big. Take half now, put half in your pocketbook. Eat it when they tell you to go to bed. Why are you rolling your eyes? Boy, God's grace is sufficient, isn't it? And he'll keep you through it all. But I'm begging you this morning. I may not be your pastor at this present moment, but as a pastor, this is what I am begging you. Don't revert back because it looks better. Hold on as long as you can possibly hold on. And when you think you're going to let go, tie a knot in the end of it and hold on again. He's true. You okay? I'm going to let you go before 3 o'clock. I'm landing the plane right there. Did y'all hear the helicopter drop? That's how that happens. Listen, the card by YouTube, Facebook, the